but you mentioned briefly the memoir. How hard was it to write that memoir? I wrote one myself, my memoir, right? And it did all this New York Times, all this bestseller stuff.
Right.
I did, when I was writing it, and I had a writing coach, and we're just, I'm pulling parts of my life, and I had to, I grew up with a lot of like crazy abuse and all this shit, and I'm talking about all this stuff, right? And the stuff that I normally would never talk about.
Right.
And all this stuff is coming out, and I'm talking about relationship with my mother, which I never talk about, and not knowing my father, and like all this stuff. And I pour all this out into this, and this book is done. And I'm sitting there, and it's like 2 weeks before the book's coming out, and I go, "Oh shit, I don't want to talk about this with strangers." I just realized that like I just put all my shit out there.
Right.
I called I say, "Hey, we gotta." This isn't good. I changed my mind. We got to shut it down. We got to shut it down. We'll do something else. And they're like, it's in production. It's already in stores. And he's like, it's going to be fine. Wow. It's not going to be fine. Like, I don't want this out there.
So you had that.
Did you have that moment with this where you're like?
I did and I didn't, because the doc was happening at the same time as the book. And so I knew what I'd already spoken about in the doc. And I knew I'd already hit send on that one,
So it was like,
it was like, well, if the book doesn't follow up a lot of that stuff and follow it up differently, it's just a different way to tell stories, obviously. And so I again, it was just one of those things. I just rolled the dice, and I stopped trying to, predict what the results were going to look like, what the reaction was going to be. And it was just a thing about, you keep stuff inside for so long. And I have a ton of experience of how that feels.
Yes.
Keeping shit in, You
just carry that weight.
Yeah, I didn't need any more.
But
it
always escapes in the worst ways. It's always somebody who doesn't deserve it that catches it. When you're holding that.
You mean like
when you're holding that rage or that sadness or that emptiness, it's always the person who's trying to get close to you that catches the hell.
It's misdirected usually,
Yeah, because they become a safe place, not knowing what's inside you.
Yeah, what box they just unlocked.
Yeah.
But then when it was out there, it was one of my early interviews promoting both projects, and one of the producers, this lady, said to me, "Wow, that was great. That was really cool that you were open talking about stuff." She says, "A lot of people have the experience that you had where they put it all out there and then they panic about discussing it." And I said to her, "Well, if you're going to put it, in a doc and a book at the same time, I think you better be ready to discuss it."
Yeah.
In the interviews, and
which is, in my experience, my fears was that the people that, because the one thing is I did and maybe is I made sure that I was the villain or I was the poor choice in every story. I never played the victim.
I didn't either.
Yeah,
so
and I think that's important.
I totally relate to that. Yeah.
And I said I was a thief. I said I was a thug. I was a liar, a cheater. I was, all these things, but I was never a victim.
Right.
And I thought that was my message, was like,
sure,
I'll own my stuff, and that doesn't mean for like owning your stuff and accountability and the way my mind works. It isn't about necessarily, you want forgiveness, right? The best thing in the world is to go to somebody you hurt or you let down and say, "Hey, I failed you. I'm sorry."
Right.
And they say, "I forgive you." What I learned, especially when that feeling came of the thing, is that I had not forgave myself yet. And forgiveness isn't about them. That's the lesson I learned. It's about you. You letting go. They might not ever forgive you. So you can't carry that with you forever.
No.
All you can say is like, I've wronged. I know I've wronged.
Sure.
I'm doing everything I can not to be that person anymore. I'm sorry for what I did to you, but I'm going to forgive myself so I can move on.
Sure. Yeah.
And that's not always a popular thing for people to hear.
Right.
But that's the only way you get that shit off you. Do you
I totally agree. Yeah. Yeah. And I think another piece of that is what I would encounter is the expectation of somebody me needing someone to be on my timeline of forgiveness.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
It might not ever happen.
Right. Or when they say, "You know what, let me sit with that." excuse me, let me get back to you. And that could be 6 months or a year,
Yeah.
or it could be the next morning,
Right.
or it could also be the awesome version example of it where they're like, "Oh, what you're still thinking about that thing?"
Yeah, that's the best thing you want to hear.
That
Yeah.
was we were past that 10 years ago, and you're like, "Oh shit, okay, cool, thank you,
Thank you. 'Cause
yeah."
People, because there's always, and that's another thing too. You are in a position to where you didn't have to do any of this. You could go off into the sunset. It's not like you're strapped for cash and struggling,
Right.
You could have just gone away. Why was it important for you to come out, not just do a book and a documentary, so everyone gets both sides of it?
Right.
Whether, people who read are going to read and people who watch, docs are going to doc. So there's two giant audiences there.
Sure.
Why do it, I guess?
It was not the what was left behind, before I decided
Right.
to put down the bottle and just get responsible and become an adult
Adult,
again.
yes.
Yeah. It just it didn't feel like that really was the message that I wanted as the final chapter
Right.
in as far as the public is concerned.
Right.
I knew personally there was going to be just a lot of cool stuff in my future.
Right.
But I couldn't leave it behind. That couldn't be the final scene in the movie.
Well, yeah, because you also grew up
Right.
in the public eye.
Right. Yeah.
So for a lot of people who didn't, you've lived a lot of lives, and,
Sure.
and so you're trying to live new lives now.
Right.
So you're trying to bury some of the old stuff. And then for people who have aspersions or have, he's this or he's that or whatever.
Right.
This was your way of saying like, listen, here it is.
Yeah.
Do what you want with it.
Sure.
But I'm moving on, and hopefully you move on with me.
Exactly. Yeah, and it was a chance to just have a hand in a reset.
Right.
And adjust the narrative in a way that because I'm sure there were before these projects, I'm sure there were people out there that either saw me as the guy in the bowling shirt writing
Right.
jingles or the guy screaming winning.
Right.
So it was important for me to just I don't want to say set the record straight, but
Just tell your story. Here it is.
Yeah, and let people know, hey, there was a lot more stuff going on behind the scenes that led to that meltdown, that led to that departure.
Well, it's very hard for people when they watch you on TV or movies. They don't realize when the camera turns off, it's a very different world that you live in.
Sure.
And it's dark. It's lonely. And like every time you look around, you don't know if somebody's patting you on the back or pulling your wallet out from underneath you. Then there's the thing that you're always gone. That was what my family's issue with me was when you were home to rest, pay bills, and try to get everything in 2 days.
Sure.
And we're not ready yet, and then you're gone. You don't have time to make up with your wife. If you have a fight when you get home, you don't talk for 2 days, and you're back on the road for another month. People don't realize again, there's benefits. You get the money, you get the recognition.
Sure.
The downside of it is your personal relationships struggle. It's a tough thing. And then you get into the point where you're like, look at the life you have. Look what I do provides this life. And they're like, well, we didn't want that life. We want you. And you know what I'm saying? It's like,
right.
But then they say that and you're like, okay, cool. Let's turn in the Jags,
Right.
get some Kias. Let's get a log cabin in Maine
Right.
and just downsize. And hey, I'll do a movie once a year.
Right.
Well, let's
They're
not
like,
do
well,
that
hold
now.
on,
Yeah.
Hold on. Yeah.
That's the thing. If you don't, and if it's too personal of a question, we'll edit it. But what was the moment that you were like, enough for the bottle? What was the moment that was it? Several things?
There,
Was there
yeah,
one
it
thing, or
was a
combination. Because that takes a lot.
It was a combination. Yeah, it was like just being smart enough to start paying attention to my body. Right. And when the insides are trying to literally live on the outside, that's a moment that needs needs adjusting, you know. But it was also I just didn't feel that I was available to the people that count on me the most, and available in a way that they came to rely on, but then had to make adjustments based on my choices, you know. Yeah, I got really tired of just disappointing people and ultimately letting myself down.